Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Oh dear, we're having concept creep. Yes, concept creep. Maybe with a touch of cocaine hippo. In other words, doing things not because they should, but rather just because they can. Here it is. Beethoven's Violin Concerto, sort of, on a disc called Beethoven and Beyond. You see, it's the beyond part, which is, where all the confusion arises. Anyway, it's Beethoven's Violin Concerto played by Maria Dueñas, who gets top billing, as you can see here. She's much more important than Beethoven. See Beethoven and Beyond in teeny type with the Vienna Symphony, the Wiener Symphoniker under Manfred Honeck, who's a wonderful conductor. And he sort of tries his best here, to little avail, actually. What do we got? Okay, so this is 2 CDs. Got it? On these 2 CDs, you have Beethoven's Violin Concerto, and then you have a movement, just an isolated adagio from Spohr's Symphonie Concertante for violin and harp, number 1. And then we've got the Berceuse by Ysaÿe, Saint-Saëns Havanaise, Wieniawski's Legende, the Legend, and Fritz Kreisler's Liebeslied. So you have little works by each of those. Then, get ready! On disc 2, you have cadenzas, nothing but cadenzas to the first movement of the Beethoven, just the first movement, not other movements where they're sort of interpolated. And they are by the same composers, by Spohr, Ysaÿe, Saint-Saëns, Wieniawski, and Kreisler. Well, isn't that nice? So what is this? Who on earth wants to listen to a bunch of cadenzas? I certainly don't. Some people may. Actually, it's not that they aren't interesting. I mean, the ones by Saint-Saëns and Wieniawski are particularly interesting. Spohr's is typically rather brief and austere. It's about 1.5 minutes long. All the others are about 4 minutes. They're solid chunks of music. And wonderfully, Miss Dueñas, who is really a bit of a prodigy. I mean, she's only 22, 23. She's a composer. She's a splendid violinist. I mean, she's a wonderful violinist, don't get me wrong. But she wrote her own cadenzas, and that's the ones we hear. I mean, hers aren't bad. They're perfectly fine. They're also about 4 minutes long. She should have taken a lesson from Spohr. Could have been a couple minutes shorter, I think. But okay, never mind. So you have this morass of stuff. Some of it is really quite interesting. According to Wikipedia, or one of those sites or something I was looking at recently, there are apparently 5 versions of this Beethoven concerto zipping around. You can pick your cadenza. It's like a Heath kit, You build your own concerto. You just pick your cadenza and plug it in. Now, anybody who thinks that it matters which cadenza you use, it needs to have their head examined. I mean, it's an absolutely ridiculous exercise in musical minutiae. Yes, I mean, they're quite different from one another. That's true. But in a work that's about 45 minutes long, who's doing the cadenza stuff, unless it's like Schnittke, and it's in a wholly different style from that of the composer, doesn't really make that much difference. And in addition, what she has not done is use the reconstituted cadenza that Beethoven wrote, that he inserted in the piano concerto version of the violin concerto, the one with the timpani and all that. That would have been fun. I mean, there's room on disc 2 for yet another cadenza. Of course, there are dozens of cadenzas. So, there she has it. You've done it. She plays them all quite well. Let's talk about the violin concerto, shall we? Because in this morass of additional material and do-it-yourself, build your own concerto stuff, the actual Beethoven concerto sort of gets lost. It gets lost in the shuffle. And it's not because of the performance per se. I mean, it takes a long time. The performance itself is inert. That is the word that came to mind listening to it. Honeck is a very fine conductor. He lets the forte outbursts and things burst. You get a sense in the 2D passages that he wants to push the thing forward a little more than Miss Dueñas wants to move. The first movement is really static. It really is. I mean, just from that second, the minute she picks up the second subject, in the solo exposition, the part that goes ya da 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 ya da 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 da. I mean, it can really lay there, and it does. She has this tendency to slow down and sort of revel in her lovely tone, and she does have a lovely tone. She's on record as saying that she, listened to Heifetz and Oistrakh, and she wanted to have her own personal violin tone so that people would recognize her. Well, she gives you plenty of time to get to know her and to recognize her tone, and it is beautiful. It really is beautiful. But my God, this piece needs to move. It's not a series of isolated violin episodes punctuated by islands of laborious activity. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. That in the development section, there's all that hushed minor key musing, and it just stops dead. Oh my God, it stops dead in the tracks. So by the time you get to her lovely cadenza at the end of the movement, which is 27 and a bit minutes long, I mean, 25 is more normal, but 22, 23 is what you should be shooting for, frankly. But anyway, by the time you get to her cadenza, I mean, it's just like, oh no. I mean, at least it justifies itself because everything else is so dull that it has some actual, violinistic pyrotechnics and things so that you can wake up and go, oh, well, finally, there's a violin here. Yeah, okay. So that's that. The slow movement is very beautiful, but my goodness, there are moments where, it's an adagio, isn't it, or a largo or something? What does Beethoven call it? I'm just out of curiosity. I think it's an adagio. But the funny thing about it is that it doesn't seem to be moving, larghetto, pardon me, any more quickly than large swaths of the first movement. They're already larghetto. I mean, it's the contrast that's missing. This is an incredibly lyrical concerto. We know that. It's not about showmanship at all. It's mostly long-breathed melodies in long note values. So contrast is key. I mean, the first movement is still an allegro. I mean, yes, it's allegro ma non troppo. Okay, fine. But it's got to move. And then the finale is just, it's just boring. Da 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 da. There's just no rhythmic lift to it whatsoever, except when Honeck gets to cut loose with the orchestra. Then it has like some pizzazz. But 12 minutes of this? Come on, folks. So why on earth would you want to hear 5 or 6 or however many different versions of the Beethoven Violin Concerto with different cadenzas by different composers when everything that surrounds those cadenzas is equally dull? That is the question. It really is. I really believe, in a project like this, it just seems so narcissistic. It really does. She's a very gifted artist. There's no question about it. She's young. I'm sure that in Spain, they're kissing her feet and throwing, bouquets at her and, dragging her, through the streets of wherever it is after the bulls are charging down. Or I don't know what they're doing with her. But the point is, I know that, I'm sure they think she can do no wrong because she's Spanish. Well, who gives a damn whether she's Spanish? What we care about is whether she's a great violinist. She has the makings of a great violinist. This is not great violin playing. This is a concept, which she does beautifully. But if you want Beethoven's Violin Concerto, go get a great recording of Beethoven's Violin Concerto. I enjoyed hearing all these different cadenzas individually. It's a nifty idea. But this do-it-yourself concerto business doesn't get you anywhere when the whole rest of the concerto is just not terribly interesting. And that's the problem. So I think someone needs to give her a little reality check. I doubt that will happen. She's, I'm sure, living in a bubble of adulation. But she should take a deep breath and just make great recordings of the violin repertoire. You know, I mean, there's all this pressure to be different, and she's a composer. I mean, so who knows what else she could do? But, you know, first thing she needs to do is serve the composer, the other composer, not her, and do him justice. And then she will be doing herself justice as well. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.